You know, anybody who's listened to me throughout my career, through my long, 25, 30 years now in local and national radio, you all know that boxing is my favorite sport. So boy, was I looking forward to this past weekend. A show on Friday night from Times Square in New York City. A show on Saturday night with Canelo fighting in the main event in Saudi Arabia. And then Sunday night, in my opinion, the best fighter in the world, Naoya Inoue, the monster, fighting in the main event. And it was on ESPN for all to see on Sunday night in Las Vegas. Welcome to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed. This is, of course, Dave Smith, and we're going to talk everything about the past boxing and the boxing recap. But first of all, thanks to all of you for subscribing, for listening, following us on YouTube, and following us on Spotify. And we really appreciate all the support. And you know who else we love supporting us? It's our great sponsor, MTS Transportation. Call them at 800-640-6873. 800-640-6873. Reliable, on-time delivery. Compliance you can count on. Round-the-clock support. Superior communication. Experienced logistic partners. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off your next shipment. So for all your shipping and freight and trucking needs, there's nobody else to call but MTS Transportation at 800-640-6873. All right, let's start with the Friday night show. And I was really excited about this. Times Square Boxing. And if you've ever been to New York, you know what an exciting place Times Square is with all the lights and all the action right in the middle of the city. And for the first time, they're putting together an outdoor show, you know, promoted by Ring Magazine and, of course, Oscar de la Hoya involved and Turki Ali Sheikh, the new power force in boxing, all putting on the show in Times Square. And boy, it had all the bells and whistles. It had all the scoreboards and screens lit up, and it was a sight to behold. It was fantastic to see this. And I like different venues for boxing. I kind of miss the old stadium days and the stadium shows, and this is fantastic. And I also heard that Oscar de la Hoya said that they're planning another show. No, hold on to your seats. This would be awesome. They're planning another show for Alcatraz Island. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that whole island being lit up and putting a boxing show on in the outdoor venue? And you can see the Golden Gate Bridge, and you can see the beautiful San Francisco skyline. And the boats taking all the fans out there for the fight. That'd be epic. That'd be fantastic. I can't wait for that. But here's the problem. I love the Times Square venue. I love the idea. I love the excitement of it. But it was not a pay-per-view show. See, this is where they made the mistake. Turki Ali Sheikh, Oscar, Ring Magazine, and company. This should have been a free fight on ESPN or regular network television, a free show. Because yes, Ryan Garcia was fighting. Yes, Teofimo Lopez was fighting. Yes, Devin Haney. But none of them were fighting each other. See, that's the problem. That was not a pay-per-view card. This was a golden opportunity to bring in the casuals and the non-boxing fans, the regular sports fans who don't normally watch boxing. Put this one on free TV. Oh, they can see the spectacle out there. They can see Times Square. Maybe they get some great fights with some young stars. And then you turn them into boxing fans. But charging $60 for this, and really, this is a minor show because the guys weren't fighting each other. Charging $60 for this relegates it to only hardcore boxing fans, and you're not bringing in new fans. It was a big mistake. Sort of have some of the winners fight each other next, then put it on pay-per-view. As for the card itself, boy, it was a dud. A dud. Teofimo Lopez, the first fight. Now, he's a really good fighter. He's a world champion, and he won easily in his fight, but over Arnold Barboza. And he looked good and he won easily, but, you know, it went to a decision and he didn't knock the guy out. And I've seen Teo look better, but I'm not going to knock him too much. He looked better than anybody else on the show, so he comes away with a victory. Then on the semi-main, excuse me, Devin Haney. What a dreadful fight against Jose Ramirez. Haney wins a unanimous decision, but I had a hard time staying asleep. I mean, this was, I tell you what, this was about as bad as it gets for boring fights. Terrible. So they're 0 for 2 so far as I'm concerned on the Friday night fights. Teo looked okay, but, you know, not world-beating. The Devin Haney fight was horrible. Now we get to the main event. And how about this for a shocking upset? Oscar De La Hoya, Turki Ali Sheikh, all these guys trying to bring back Ryan Garcia after he beat Devin Haney last year and got the 1-year suspension for PEDs, steroids. We're going to bring him back. We're going to turn him into a superstar. You know, it's a really good-looking kid. He's the next Oscar De La Hoya. He's charismatic. The girls love him. He sells out wherever he goes. Well, how about this? He gets knocked down by Rolly Romero in the second round, and he winds up losing the fight by unanimous decision, and I agreed with that. I had it 115-112 for Romero. I thought it was a very, very good decision. And where does Ryan Garcia go from here? I mean, this pretty boy, maybe he needs to go to modeling or acting or something because I think we all saw what Ryan Garcia we get when he's off steroids, when he's not on PEDs, and we saw that on Friday night. Average, ordinary, easy to hit. So that was an extremely disappointing performance, and you wonder how much longer is Oscar going to stick with him and his promotional team after a dreadful performance like this. Now, what's next for Rolly Romero? Maybe he fights Teofimo Lopez next. Maybe he fights Devin Haney next. But all in all, this should not have been a pay-per-view show. It was disappointing and the fights weren't any good. So it was a dud. And for any sucker out there who paid $60, I feel sorry for you. Well, speaking of duds, speaking of bad fights, speaking of wasting money, they asked another $60 for the fight that happened on Saturday night. Canelo Alvarez defending his 168-pound world championship against somebody named William Skull. He's originally from Cuba and now fights out of Germany. And somehow, I'd never seen him fight before, but somehow, some way, he had one of the world championship belts going into that fight. How he did that, I don't know. Maybe he fought me. Maybe I'm waking up from a dream, although I think I could have beaten him after what I saw on Saturday night. But that was dreadful. Skull certainly, obviously didn't come there to win. He was there to dance and move and avoid contact and to last 12 rounds and collect his paycheck and get the hell out of there. And I knew Canelo at 34. I know he's on the downside. I know he's not what he used to be, but I didn't know he's this far gone. He looked awful. Yeah, again, it's hard to fight a guy who doesn't want to engage and who doesn't want to fight and who's running for 12 rounds. But normally in the past, Canelo would have walked him down and stopped him eventually. But he looked old, he looked slow, he looked plodding, he couldn't pull the trigger. It was a dreadful fight. And, you know, my late great friend, Bert Sugar, one of the great boxing writers of all time, a good friend of mine, he had a great line once. So we're sitting next to each other in Vegas, and it was a dreadful fight we were watching. And he turned to me and said, you know what? They should have let everybody in for free and charged them to get out. That's one of the greatest lines I've ever heard. And that applied to the fight on Saturday night. You know what they could do, though? They should have recorded this and saved it for posterity, and then they can show it on Dancing with the Stars next season. Just take a week off and put it on in its place. Nobody be able to tell the difference. There's two guys out there ballroom dancing and doing the cha-cha and not hitting each other. That's what Alvarez's Skull was. A dreadful, boring night. And again, did any of you suckers pay $60 for that? $60 for that Friday night Times Square show, $60 for this fight between Canelo and William Skull. And by the way, it was in Saudi Arabia. Usually Canelo fights twice a year. He fights on Cinco de Mayo, and then he fights in September on Mexican Independence Day. And it's always in Las Vegas, and it's always sellouts, and it's always huge crowds and huge interest, and he usually puts on a good show, and he almost always wins. But Cinco de Mayo in Saudi Arabia? And it looked like they were fighting at a high school gym. Did you see that backdrop? It looked like the gym where I went to high school back in the day. And last I checked, I don't think Cinco de Mayo is celebrated wildly in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's a big deal over there. Why is Canelo fighting on Cinco de Mayo in Saudi Arabia and not in Vegas, where he usually does, with sellout crowds and lots of excitement? So that was a waste of time, and that was boring. And I hope none of you suckers spent $60 on that Times Square show, or $60 on that Canelo disaster. And boy, after I saw that, he had better stay the hell away from David Benavidez, who I'm convinced now would stop Canelo. And he'd better stay away from a rematch with Dimitri Bivol, who dominated him a couple of years ago. And I tell you what, I didn't know really which way to go. He's fighting Terrence Crawford in September, and Crawford's moving all the way up from welterweight to 168. He's moving up 3 weight classes. And I originally thought, well, Canelo's too big, and, there's levels to this, and there's a reason for weight classes. But after what I saw on Saturday night, I'm on Bud Crawford all the way on this fight. A master boxer, a great chin, power in both hands. And he walks around at 160, 170 all the time anyway. I think Bud Crawford is going to school Canelo the way Floyd Mayweather Jr. did and win a unanimous decision when they fight in September. Even though he's going up 3 weight classes, I love Bud in this fight. Well, so after the 2 bad fights, I said to myself, well, we've got a saving grace here. Because on Sunday night, we have, in my opinion, the best fighter in the world pound for pound in Naoya Inoue, the monster from Japan. 29-0 with 26 knockouts going in. Fighting a tough guy in Ramon Cardenas, who's 26-1 with 14 knockouts. I've seen Cardenas fight before. Didn't seem to me like he was much of a match for the great Inoue, but a very, very tough guy with a sneaky left hook. Yeah, this could be a problem. Because if there's one weakness in Inoue, and we saw this in the Luis Nery fight, he has a tendency, when he throws that right hand, he brings it back low and he can get nailed with a left hook. Nery knocked him down. And we saw it happen again Sunday night against Cardenas. Second round, Inoue coming forward, throws the right hand, brings it back low, drops it, bang, gets it with the left hand, just like the Nery fight, and down goes Inoue in the second round. And he looked like he was hurt. But thankfully for him, the bell rang when he got up and he was saved by the bell. But that was the only round he lost. Other than that, he was typical Naoya Inoue, the best fighter in the world pound for pound. The only round he lost was the second round. He dominated the rest of the fight. He almost knocked him out in the 5th and 6th round, and then finally finished him. Finally finished him in the 6th. Just a dominating, great performance outside of the knockdown, and that's the one flaw. He's vulnerable to that left hook. If somebody has a really good left hook and hits harder than Cardenas, that could be the guy who beats him. But he reminds me so much of Manny Pacquiao. He really does. He action fighter, coming forward, incredible power for a guy his size, just like Manny. And, he's willing to take a few like Manny was. Manny got knocked down a couple of times. He's willing to take a few to come in and land his shots. He's hittable, which makes... And this was a great fight against Cardenas. Inoue got knocked down, came back to win. This, to me, saved my boxing weekend. Because Friday, the Times Square show was a stinker. Saturday, the Canelo fight was a bore fest and another stinker. But as usual, Naoya Inoue always delivers. And it was an exciting, great fight. He gets knocked down. He comes back to win. Now he's 30-0 with 27 knockouts. So what's next for him? Well, I tell you what should be next. The bantamweight champion of the world, and 118 pounds, it's only 4 pounds less than Inoue's weight class. Junto Nakatani, whom I love, whom I've seen fight a lot. He's 3 inches taller than Naoya. He's a fellow Japanese fighter. He's 30-0 with 23 knockouts. He's a real threat to defeat Naoya. And I tell you what, this will be the biggest fight in the history of Japanese boxing when they get together. They could sell 1 million tickets for this in Japan. This could be $1 billion fight when they add up all the money. People around the world buying the pay-per-view, and the people in Japan, the whole country will buy pay-per-view and watch it, and they'll set records for attendance there. They could sell out 2 Tokyo Domes. They could sell out 10 Tokyo Domes if that's where they fight. Because Junto Nakatani is a great fighter. He's good. He's 3 inches taller than Naoya. He has power. He punches in combinations. He can win that fight. Now, I would pick Naoya to win because he's more experienced and he's a little bit bigger framed. But he's only 5'5", and Huto's 5'8". But that's going to be an absolute blockbuster in Tokyo, Japan, and that's the fight right now. If you're a hardcore boxing fan like me, to me, that is the fight in boxing that needs to be made. That is, if I could pick out one fight right now that I could see, it would be Naoya Inoue against Junto Nakatani. Absolutely, I love it. And finally, I was thinking, with that boring Canelo fight and that terrible Times Square show on Friday, particularly the Devin Haney-Jose Ramirez fight. Here's what I think should happen. I think we could cut down on a lot of crime and open up a lot of jail space this way. Or all defendants who are standing in front of a judge from now on. The judge should give them an option. You can either go straight to jail, or you have to sit down and watch Canelo and William Skull and Devin Haney and Jose Ramirez all the way through, start to finish. Maybe make them watch it twice. And I tell you what, if a judge gave defendants that option, they'd be racing to jail. They'd be begging to go to jail instead of watching that nonsense. So I think we can get a lot of criminals off the street that way. And you know what? We'll send you to jail, or you can watch Canelo Skull and Haney Ramirez. That's cruel and unusual punishment, though. I don't know if you can put a defendant through that to watch those two fights. Wow. So stinker on Friday, stinker on Saturday, but did I love the fight Sunday night? Naoya Inoue, he saved the weekend for me as a hardcore boxing fan. Don't forget to subscribe to Dave Smith Unleashed. Go to youtube.com/@TheDaveSmithUnleashed podcast. youtube.com/@TheDaveSmithUnleashed podcast. Follow me on Twitter @DaveSportsGod. I'm always posting when the next shows are coming up, and I appreciate all you subscribers and all your listeners. So everybody, hit that subscribe button, listen to Dave Smith Unleashed, and don't forget MTS Transportation, 800-640-6873, reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistic partners. Mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for listening, boxing fans. We'll talk to you next time, right here with Dave Smith Unleashed.